Welcome to the Alain Elkann interviews, an unprecedented window into the minds of some of the most well-known and respected figures of the last 25 years.
Edith Bruck is with us today. She is a very well-known writer. She is one of the participants to the very important Italian award, Premio Strega, and just published in the collection Oceani for the publisher La Nave di Teseo, a new book whose title is Il pane perduto. Il pane perduto is not a novel. It is a kind of a diary, or what the French will call a récit, about your life, your early life. I mean, when you were taken from your native village in Hungary, you're taken suddenly with your whole family to Auschwitz. And here the book starts, and then you tell all your life until later on you come to live in Italy, where you end by marrying the poet and cinema director Nello Risi, right?
Yes.
So how would you describe this book, Il pane perduto, the lost bread?
I don't know. I try to write again because I wrote a lot of books about Auschwitz and about today and yesterday and tomorrow. I had a moment that I lost my memory, but only one moment exactly. I didn't know what is computer. And I asked the woman who was living with me how to write. And I had a kind of a panic. I was afraid that I lost my memory. And without memory, I cannot live, absolutely. For me, it's the dying. And I started to write a new book immediately because I was afraid that I lost my memory. And I tried to write, and I wrote on the end. I like flying all my life, from the childhood till today.
It's like a memoir in a way, or an autobiography somehow,
yeah,
right?
But not only memoir. I think it's also the story, history, not only autobiography. And all the time they said it's not like that because it doesn't regard the story and the humanity, what happened. Not only me. I write from yesterday, for today, and for tomorrow.
To start writing with the chapter La Bambina Scalza. The Bambina Scalza is you. You are in a small village in Hungary. You were born in a Jewish family. Your parents were quite poor.
Very poor.
And as the war was almost finished, right, in 1944, your father didn't think that Hitler and the Nazis would touch the Jews, right? Because until then, they had not been persecuted, the Hungarian Jews. I mean,
yes, they persecuted the Hungarian Jews. Also before, from 1942, they started to be very anti-Semitic in the village, and the fascist propaganda. Some way, it was like poison for the people. And we suffered enough till 1944, the last 2 years. And my father was in the army, and they sent him home, and they said we didn't have with a new Jew in the army, and they sent him at home. And he was very depressed someday because he understood that something is finished, something happened, very, very tragic. He was very preoccupied. And we had a very difficult life in the last 1942 till 1944.
You were very poor, you had no much food, and the reason why you called the book Il pane perduto, which means the lost bread, is because in the moment just before the Nazi came into your house, your mother was baking bread, no? She was doing...
Yes.
Tell the story yourself, and what happened?
What happened that my mother made the bread, the nagbar gave us the flour, and she gave us for the bread after the last day of the Pesach. And my mother made the bread, and in the morning at 5, they put down almost the door, and came the gendarmes, Hungarian gendarmes and fascists, and they try, and it was terrible in the morning. And my mother started to cry for the bread. the lost bread, the bread. I think that she, for the horror, she put all her pain and the horror in the bread, because we had to last the bread in at home. It was always ready to put in the oven. And she was crying for the bread, because for her and for us, it was very important, the bread, first of all. But I think the second is she put all her pain in the bread. We lost the bread. And all the time from the village to the ghetto, and from the ghetto to Auschwitz, she was crying all the time for the bread. But I think it was not the bread. It was everything together. And the horror, I think. And we don't know where we go. We don't know what is our destiny, absolutely. And she cried all the time for the bread. And so for this reason, I titled the book, The Lost Bread.
Then once you were in Auschwitz, you lost your parents, right? After a terrible trip, they died in the camp. You and your sister, one of your sisters, you were saved, right?
Yes.
The two of you. And you were very, very young. You were a child.
I was 13 in the ghetto, yes. But when we arrived to Auschwitz, they made the selection immediately in one moment, absolutely one moment. And I lost my sister, my brother, my father, everyone. And I went in the left side with my mother. And one of the German soldier, he said to me very slowly, go right. And I didn't know what is it, right or left. And left was the crematory immediately, and right was the forced work. And I found my sister, which is Judith in the book, but is Adele in the reality, yeah. And we was together all the time in 6 camps, very different camp. And she helps me a lot, and we live one for the other. So we saved. I think that without her, maybe I died. I'd never come back.
But how come? Why did you change so many camps?
Because I think that they would like to kill more people as possible. And it almost came the American, Canadian, and English liberation. And they put us, everyone, in very more far from the liberation. And we went from Bergen-Belsen, but from Auschwitz we went to Dachau. Dachau handed camp, like a bank, but it depends on Dachau. And from Dachau, they take us to Bergen-Belsen. From Bergen-Belsen, it was almost near the liberation. And we made the Marcia della Morte. How you can say? You help me. The very known Marcia della Morte. And we went more than 500 kilometers in the feet to Christianstadt in Sassonia. And from Sassonia, after 5 weeks, they send us back to Bergen-Belsen, always walking. And we remain 20, 30 from 1,000 women. And we arrived to Bergen-Belsen, and the Bergen-Belsen was full of dead men. They take us that we will give a kind of double zuppa, and we had to put in a kind of pyramid all the men. They was dying, and they said to me, if you survive, you have to speak, and also for us. And I said, okay, but I didn't know who they are. They were naked completely. And the last word, what you said, you racconta anche per noi. Tell also for us, yes.
The story also
yes,
for them.
Also
right?
for us, yes.
So you had an incredible experience that many other prisoners didn't have, which is that you visited, sadly, you saw many different camps. There was a difference between Auschwitz, as the symbolic camp, but were there other camps as bad as Auschwitz?
Auschwitz was not a camp for working, forced work. It was a selection, scientific examination. They just killed the people in Auschwitz. There was no work. And Dachau also, and Landsberg and Christianstadt, Kaufering was working. But Auschwitz not a working camp, absolutely no.
You and your sister must have been very strong to survive all this terrible endurance.
Very strong because we had a very difficult life also when we were at home. We were used to work and to be strong, and we had many knots in our life. The poor Jewish or the middle class had more defense of the bourgeoisie. Right. And also the men, very weak. They died much more of women. The women had a lot of fantasy to put some red paper in the face and not be selected. But the men was totally indefensible. They had no capable to defend themselves, absolutely. And they was always cured from mother and sister and the culture. The woman was much more strong in the camp, and they make a lot of pain because at the house we had a camp for the men, and it was terrible to see their situation. Even when I throw 2 potatoes, because I work in a kitchen in the house, they had no the force to take 1 potato. No, absolutely, without force, without energy.
After this horrible experience, your sister and yourself, you survived, you described in the book, and she goes to Israel very quickly. You don't want to go, but at the end of the day, you end by going as well to Israel, right?
Yes.
And you get unhappily married quickly, and you didn't feel well in Israel, right? You didn't feel to stay there.
No, it was very difficult that time. I think it was not time to receive people. I was grown up with my mother when we had not to eat something. And she said like, Favora, we will go one day in our country, in Israel, in Palestine. We will all happy and they will await us with open arms. And we will be happy. And I had to sleep with all this favora. And when I arrived to Israel, Israel was born from only 3 months. And there was no time to receive people and open arms and nothing. It was very difficult. The country, it was still not country. And I was waiting something that doesn't exist in the reality. So for this, I had a great delusion. And I went in another camp for 6 months, transit camps all the time. And it was very difficult that time in Israel also. And it was not listened, not in Hungary and not in Israel. They don't want to know about Auschwitz. We was very weak. And we came from Auschwitz. We was a ghetto Jewish. And the Israelis, the supper was very strong and very, very ready to fight for the country. But we had another kind of expectative, and it was very, very, very difficult. So I couldn't stay in Israel because I don't see my future someday. I was not enough strong to wait 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, because it's a very difficult time. It was not time to receive. It was not time for love. It was not time for nothing, only the costruire, building a country. And there was not a country. There was still some war, some terrorist jest.
And what do you think about, just to make a parenthesis, what do you think about what's going on in Israel today?
It's very tragic. It's very sad. I am very preoccupied, really, very, very much, because it's still, I was born, Israel is always war, all the time war. I think that they had to do some peace maybe 60 years ago. I don't know, because I don't think that we can go on in this way, because is no end of this fighting and hate, and the hate is growing always. And there is 3 or 4 generations that they grown up with hate. And the hate is called the hate. I think it's no solution I don't know what we can do. It's not so easy.
You still have family there?
I have, yes. The son of my sister who survived with me is in Israel with the family and with the children. And the other daughter of my sister is here, is Deborah. and you can speak with her. She speaks English.
Hello.
Hello, Deborah.
And she's in Italy. And the other one, that is my family. That's all. I have no one else. It's very, very difficult.
In what year did you arrive in Italy? You describe in your book.
I try to write at 46. There is no one listen to us, absolutely. Even not my sister, the biggest sister. It was only a weight for everyone. They don't know what to do with us. And we don't know what to do with ourselves, where to live, what to do, how to live, how can we live. And it was very difficult, and no one listened to us. And I take a pencil and I start to write because I was full of words. I couldn't keep inside that kind of poison. And it was very heavy, very difficult for me because I couldn't speak. So I start to write. And I start to write, I never stopped to write. And my first book that I start to write in Hungary at 46, I start to write in Italian. And for me, the Italian language was to save me someday. And they give me the freedom because it's more easy for me to write in Italian because the Hungarian language remember me, the horrible words, and I couldn't write never in my original language what I write in Italian language, what is for me a kind of muro cinese wall, China's wall. And it gave me the freedom, and it is very important for me. I don't remember anything with Italian language, and the Hungarian language, there is full of bad remembering, I see. Painful.
So you use Italian language as a neutral language where you can express yourself. But in the same time, in the book, you described that you had to make a living, you had to make money to live. And you also worked in a very fancy hairdresser for a while.
Yes,
right?
Yes, for more than 1 year, yeah. And we are conducting.
And you met all the stars and famous women.
Yes, all the hot of Rome that time, they come to this hairdresser. I speak a little bit French and very bad English now because before I spoke better than more. But now always I speak Italian. It's very difficult. And they take me for the languages only. And also Margaret from England is coming. Everyone was there, everyone, the stars of Hollywood. And I had a very, very heavy life there because I worked also 12 hours. And also actors coming to make the hair black or white, because when they make a film, Mastroianni, Salvatore, all the cinema, I think. And so I worked also till 11 in the night, from the 9 in the morning. But meantime, I met my husband, and he told me, leave the work. And I said, but we need money. And he said, before the dignity, I said, this dignity is okay, but you have to also pay the rent, and you need. So he doesn't understand. He never understood what is money. He doesn't care about money, absolutely. He never asked. When he made, at that time, he made a documentary film from the Rosselli brothers. And the producer was Giovanni Pirelli. And I said, ask from Giovanni money. And he said, no, I don't ask. He was a kind of aristocratic inside, yes. And he detests the money. Also because he was grown up in a Borghese. His father was a doctor, and his mother was translating Goethe. And he was almost ashamed to have money someday. I don't know why. But that I grown up in a poor family, for me, is very important to work and to also of my oldness. I had to someday to have money for live. And he didn't understand. He didn't know even what is account of the electricity. But for me, it was different because I came from the,
But you were able to survive, and you became a journalist, you became a writer, you published articles, books, you had awards, you were successful. Not only that, but Italy recognized your past. I think you were received by the president of Italy. Even the Pope, this Pope Francesco, came to visit you in your apartment, right? He came for 2 hours in your apartment. So this is quite strange, no?
It is incredible, really. First of all, I work also a lot for the cinema and for the television, because from writing I couldn't leave. It's difficult. But what the Pope read, the letters they got in the Messaggero, in the newspaper, and after he read a very long interview with Osservatore Romano. And he said to the director of the Osservatore Romano, I would like to know this lady. And he answered to the Pope, okay, I bring you Signora Bruck. And he said, no, you were mistaken. I go to her, not she will come to me. And he arrived 20th of February afternoon, about 4:10 minutes. And it was incredible because we didn't understand, is it really a reality or a dream or what is it? What is it? We was very excited also. We was a few person only. It was not allowed to more. And when I went to open the door, it became a kind of reality that I didn't believe till the last minute. And when I saw him, this white figure in the door, I start to cry. If you ask me why I cry, I don't know. But he touched me very much. His figure immediately, and he was very warm. He's an incredible human being. You feel his humanity. He told me, you have to breathe profoundly. I was crying. And he came inside and we prepared everything for him. But we drink some water only because I was very excited. And still I cry a little bit, not very much, but I was very in tension.
And what did you speak about?
The first thing they told me, I would like to tell you what I said in Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. He said, forgive for the Jewish martyr people. And I excuse, not for me only, I think, for the Jewish in general, I think. And he said the same thing after he said, is very grateful what I do. And he said, thank you very much, the memory and in the school. I go in the school from 60 years in Italy for the testify. So I told him and he said, thank you very much, what you do for the humanity and forgive, perdono, what happened. And we start to speak a little bit about today, about the new anti-Semitism, new racism, and the new oppressed people. And we spoke about everything a little bit, but he was very incredible memory because he read my book. And he said, what means for you the cook at the house in the kitchen? Because he asked my name. He said, what is your name, the cook in the house? And I didn't believe that he asked my name. What it was, I was nothing. I was a zero, nulla.
No.
I was just a number, nothing, absolutely nothing. I was 11,152. And I didn't believe my ears, what he asked me. And he came very, very near to me. And he said, I have a little child like you. And he put in the tasca, the hand.
In his pocket.
Pocket, yes, and give me a small petite. And the Pope said exactly the same thing. And he imitated the cook. He said, I would like to be that cook that give you the petite. And he put his hand in the pocket, and he had absolutely enough, and make like this and give me. And he was nothing, it was surreal. It was nothing in his hand, but it was very poetic and very, very nice. So he remember all the 5 kind of light that I say in my book. And I say always that 5 just in the concentration camp that allowed to me to survive. Because with all this, I think that I never came back. This cook and another soldier, they give me a little marmalade. And the other one, he doesn't shoot me. Another one who give a glove, very, very ruined, buco. And it was very, very important that kind of just in the concentration camp, because this is everything. It was the life, the meaning, it was the good world, it was the humanity, represent all the positive things. This kind of very, very little misery jest, but it's very important for me. And I think that it was very rare, absolutely very rare.
We can say that in your dramatic, horrible experience, you have been lucky vis-a-vis many other people who didn't have the capacity of surviving. Did you ever meet Primo Levi?
We was very close with Primo, yes.
He wrote this amazing book, no? If This Is a Man, If Sequestro un Uomo, which is the story of his own experience in Auschwitz. What is very interesting that you talk about after the war, and the same happened to you, happened to Primo Levi, happened to Elie Wiesel and others. People did not want to know about what happened.
Yes.
And therefore, it was very difficult to publish books about this, because even publishers, they didn't want to publish them.
That time, no. Primo told me that he could find a publisher for Sequestro un Uomo. He went never back to the work in chemic, he told me. But they said no, because it was not even time, I think, to publish that kind of book, because the world was suffering everywhere, and they thought that their suffering is like our suffering. And they start to say, like we had live the same things. It's not the same thing. Not the same cool, not the same hunger, not the same, absolutely. But when we came back from the concentration camp, no one wanted to hear us, no one. And Primo told me also that he would like to only writing. And when they said, I know this is not Ginsburg, I think, Natalia, he went back to the chemical laboratory. Was very close to Primo from 70, let's say, 1970 till the last 4 days in his life. He called me 4 days before that he suicided himself. And he told me that there is no help, there is no hope, there is no nothing. He forget everything. And he's sitting in the bed with his mother, who is blind. And he's writing what his mother said. And I said, you will write the best book in your life. Don't say like that. And he told me there's no more hope. It was more hope in Auschwitz than today. And he was very shocked in the 1980 with the word negation for negationisti. He was totally very depressed. And I became someone, his mother, not on the exactly. And we was very close, but he not allowed himself to live, to see the colors, to see the light, to the sun. He was very, very close, like a statue, like that. And it was very difficult for him to open himself for the life someday. He became someday traumatized. Yeah, he was not happy. And I said, look, the colors, how nice. Look, the window, how beautiful. That no, he said, no, it's like Africa, what is it? And he was very observant at everything. When he came in my home, he looked at for half an hour at a table, like he wanted to enter in the table. I said, what are you looking for? And I liked him very much, and we was very close to each other. And when he killed himself, I knew after half an hour for his brother-in-law. It was my friend, married with Anna Maria, the sister. And I stand up from the table. I was eating at the table. I was screaming so I can kill myself also, me, because how he allowed himself to kill himself. He was known everywhere, was translated everywhere. His voice was very, very important for the world. And he had no right to suicide himself because we belong to the story some way. And our life is not only ours. I think so. And I was very desperado. And my husband was afraid that what I do, I didn't thought never in my life to suicide myself. But I was very sad because I said, if he do it, I can do it also. He had not to do this because he still was young enough, and he is failed He had to live till the last moment in his life.
When you go to the schools, you said the Pope told you that he appreciated the fact that you went since 60 years, in many, many schools to talk about your experience, to talk about what happened. What are the reactions of the children? And probably you have taught this to different generations of students. Is there a change in the reaction, or how was the impact of what you said?
Is always the impact is very, very positive. I think that they have the need to listen. They need the words. They need what I say, or maybe someone else. Maybe at home they doesn't speak about it, but they are very, very attention, very serious. And they said, "I will be never anymore anti-Semitic, never be fascist." And everywhere I have exactly the same answer. Very, very positive. They need to know. This is the trouble. They doesn't teach them the history. Doesn't teach them. And they write me a lot of letters, many, many letters, but incredible letters from 16 years, 20. But you have no idea what they can write in 20, 18 years, 16 years also. And I have always a very, very positive answer from the student everywhere in the university or this medio school or the liceo. It's the same thing everywhere. And when I go, because I go from so many years, it's very difficult for me to start again and say it again, And there was only once in Rome that the 5 students went out, because I said, if they listened to music, and I said, I don't speak about my mother was burned in the crematorium, and you listen to the music. If you don't care about it, you can go out. So there was 500 students, and they go out 5. So I think it was important they remained 495. This is important. And there is always very important, because when I go, it's very difficult. Sometimes I don't sleep in the night. But when I came out from the schools, I was all very light. I feel good. I said I had given something, and they give me, because a kind of changing, because they listen. Their listen is a very...
It repays you.
Yes.
Now you are obviously Italian, but obviously you were born Hungarian. And how do you feel about the fact that in Hungary there is again a kind of fascist regime?
In Hungary, it's very painful. I had a discussion with Agnes Heller, and I said the radio that I don't go to Hungary. Still, there is Orban. And I never went back for the last 30 years, not only before, because I am always afraid someday that they tell something, because the anti-Semitism in Hungary never stopped. All the time when I went back, I can hear also in the street stinking Jews or something like that. So I am terrorized all the time to go back. They call me always, and now they write very much for me in Hungary after the Pope and after Mattarella, all the newspapers, and there is a kind of wake up. Someday they write in the newspaper, first page, a lot, and very, very important, because they have courage to write what they didn't write before the Pope and before Mattarella. And I receive a lot of letters also from Hungary, and there is more courage to write something, because he closed all the television also. So there is on the television of the state.
Anti-Semitism, it's something that keeps on existing everywhere. And also in these days, whenever there is a problem in Israel, it's also a very good excuse somehow to make the anti-Semitism coming back, right?
Because the people doesn't make difference from the Jewish in the world and with Israel. And the trouble that the Jew is never a person. They always said you, not you, voi ebrei. Even Calvino may say voi ebrei. When Israel do something, is guilty all the Jewish in the world. You cannot be a single person with you, what you think, with your opinion. because they judge all the Jews always together. And you cannot change this kind of life. Absolutely. And anti-Semitism, when it's problem with Israel, there is more anti-Semitism also not in Israel, but all the world, in Europe. But in Europe is everywhere anti-Semitism, not only in Hungary, because there is in France, there is in Italy, also banality, but there is. Voi Jews, voi Ebrei. It's a terrible thing that you cannot judge a person like a single person. They just all together everywhere. The anti-Semitism is all like the world. I say to the Pope, and he said, yes, it is very, very old, and the roots was never take out. And it will be always like this. I don't think that there is changing something. And with Israel, it is still more.
But after so many years, after all, you were a young, very young girl, and now you are a woman with a long experience. Do you still remember like a nightmare what happened? Is it very present in your life, or?
Not a nightmare, it's a present every day. I think till the last day of my life. I remember everything and every day. It is not a nightmare, it's a reality for me. What I lived is forever. Like I said to Moravia, per sempre. Is an experience that is inside in you, and your mind and your heart and everywhere is you. I said that I am pregnant of Auschwitz, and we're never born that baby. But I think it must be like this. We have never forget absolutely what they had do to me, to you, and to the Jewish people.
It's very, very moving when you discover that your mother was dead in your book. You know, the description of that is very, very moving and very sad.
You read a letter to the mother?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was letter to the mother or something else, because I write all the time from my mother, because she was a so innocent person, so full of faith, so pure. And her that I can never forget, absolutely. It's impossible for me.
There is another Jewish writer who was a friend of mine called Aaron Appelfeld.
Appelfeld, yes.
Who wrote also about his mother, and he had an experience similar to yours.
Yeah, I know. I read his book. And now I have a new book of poetry that will be published by Ravi Teseo. And still I write poetry for my mother. I wrote 4 books of poetry. And always my mother, my father, my mother, my brother.
You prefer to write fiction like a novel or essay, or you prefer to write poetry?
Both. If you need a long text, I write. If it's only an idea, I sit down and write a poetry.
And you feel comfortable to live in Rome? You like to live in Rome? You like to live in Italy with the Italians?
Yes, but I said that everyone said the Bruck, the bunker, via Babuino. I don't like to go on, and all the time I'm overworking or writing, and all my life it passed like this. And it's okay. Yes, I couldn't live nowhere, only Italy today. If you ask me where you want to live, I said Italy. This is my home, this is my country, this is my language, this is my freedom.
It became your language?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
You think in Italian, you live in Italian?
Yes. That's the language that I know better of any other language, but I also someone translating poetry from the Hungarian language, because the traditional, in Hungary, there was always very great poets. I translated 3 books, the Attila, Radnóti, Ilyes, but today there is no poetry. I don't know what happened to Hungary. There is no poet. Maybe because of Orban, but it was a country where was always very great poet. Today, they don't know where they are, absolutely. I would like to translate something because I don't see very well now, and maybe I can translate slowly something. I love very much the poetry.
You like to translate?
Yes. It's a very heavy work, very difficult, but I would like to read very beautiful things that the people doesn't know. And when I translate Joseph Attila, it's incredible, like very, very nice, very wonderful. I am very happy because someone can read it.
Thank you very, very much for this
Thank you very much.
long interview. And I hope you will win the Strega Award. I wish you that.
Maybe. Grazie mille, Alain. Grazie.
Alain Elkann interviews.